saw today. We have today Olgą Duchowną, Ukrainian-born but established in France dancer and choreographer. Today she performed Swan Lake Solo. The premiere of this piece took place on May of this year. We have Paulem Bargetto, a dramaturg, the dramaturg of and director, the dramaturg of every Minute Motherland. The dance performance by Maciej Kuźmiński, created with Polish-Ukrainian dancers. The premiere took place in August this year. And we have Anną Steller, dancer, choreographer, and performer from Poland. We just watched her performance Odbicia. And it was premiered in April of this year. And my name is Polina Bulat. I'm Ukrainian journalist, dance writer, and producer. And first of all, I would like to join today's Olga's words and to say huge thank you to all Polish people for supporting Ukraine during these hard times and for such long time. And I would also like to say huge thank you to Czalo Umysł Festival, who invited all of us and who created such program also to bring up the topic of Ukrainian war right now. So my first question to start would be like for all of our artists. You have all pretty different backgrounds and your performances were very different, but somehow they are all connected to the current war which Russia launched in Ukraine. Could you please share with us what motivated you to respond for this event? Maybe Olga, let's start with you.
Why me? Well, this solo, which you saw, has a kind of a long story behind. And somehow it became a political piece. But as I always say, it happened not because I really intended to, but because I made it during this time. And during the creation, war started, and I had the premiere in May, and so the war was already going on for a few months, and I even added the text, which was, for example, not really there from the beginning, so somehow the solo really has this kind of, how to say, it has the political situation or historical situation in itself, inside. What I mean, it's also like I started this solo in 2020, and already I had 2 years of lockdown. And for example, even the fact that I am in the center and not moving is just related to the fact that I created this solo in my bedroom, and I decided to keep it like this. I found it funny to keep it like that. And for example, the whole political context, of course it was already there, because for example, the relation of Swan Lake ballet, classical ballet, with the fall of Soviet regime was already there. We all knew it. I mean, Ukrainian people know about that, Russian people know about that. That's really a context which everybody share. But I really didn't mention to work on it precisely. My idea was just to recycle the gesture, basically, to take off the story, to keep the gesture and to see what happens. But as you can see, the political situation really came in, and I just let it be. Like, I was not trying to finish my solo as I imagined it. I wanted to let the situation pass through. I wanted to open it. And then it even took another sense for myself, because, for example, there are this position which I take always during the whole solo. And at the beginning, for me, it was just a formal gesture, because in classical ballet there are numbers. You know, there is not a huge piece. It's a little numbers of 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And I wanted just to keep basically the numbers score, that I do one part, second part, etc. And I wanted to have just a gesture basically to to say that this is a montage moment. This is the moment when the new scene starts. But then the war happened, and even for me, this position became something else. Like when I do it now, I kind of feel that whatever happens to me, to my body, like whatever going through, I still stand, I come back, you know, I can still keep the position, and even when I'm not there, the position is still there, and it really became for me kind of a statement of Ukraine, somehow. But from the beginning, it was not my intention. So somehow, this solo for me, it's really passing through the history and political situation and just letting it stay inside and letting it be, basically. I'm talking a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Olga. Paul, what about you? What motivated you to join Every Minute Motherland project?
I live in Warsaw. I've lived in Warsaw for 12 years, and when the war started, the war came here in the person of hundreds of thousands of refugees, and I was helping, as many Warszawiaks were, to bring sandwiches to the station and give people shelter and give away all our clothes and give away we had. And so I just continued in that work. But I work in culture. I'm a director and a dramaturg, and I wanted to, once the initial crisis was over, I really wanted to work with Ukrainian artists as a way to help in this way, the way that I know the best how to help, I suppose. Yeah, this is an extraordinary situation. I mean, I don't have words for all of it. It's a horror show, and I wanted to do something about it. And joining the piece, when Maciej invited me, was a kind of automatic response. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to work with Ukrainian artists who are also refugees, and craft a kind of resistance. I think one of the things that struck me so personally about this has been the calculated aggression against Ukrainian culture, meaning that theaters were specifically targeted, as like in Mariupol and other places, museums, individual artists were assassinated. So it felt like this is war against culture, and so in the safety of Poland, if we can make culture together with Ukrainian artists, this is a way of also preserving Ukrainian culture and heritage.
Thank you, Anna. And as far as I know, Odbicia is like your first directly political related piece. So why you made this decision also to respond?
Yes, the origin of that performance was that I was invited to take a part in an exhibition in April, which was entitled 100,000 bounces. Actually, can I tell it in Polish? It's like 100,000 odbić. And the idea of it was that after 2 years of COVID, I mean, COVID still, is, but after 2 years of lockdown, let's try to see the brighter future. Let's try to make something positive. Let's try to bounce off something which maybe take us to better reality. And I don't know as you, but when war started or continue in February, I was completely stuck, and I was not able actually to create anything. I was like completely paralyzed by the war, by the situation, by the fact that people are dying, like so close, and actually I couldn't really think that I can present or I can make a piece which is like positive, which is like nice and in this meaning. So I thought that I will make the performance as simple as possible, and actually I only had in my body, in my mind, things which were like very simple and were very instinct, and this performance was like my my act of support, my act of being with Ukrainian people. And I wanted also to cheer people up with this performance. I mean, I didn't have like clear intention what this performance must, you know, make for audience, you know, make for people. But my intention was positive. Okay, whatever is happening, what kind of evil is happening, and of course we are attacked by terrible, you know, photos, videos from the war. I just wanted to say I stay with Ukraine, and that was it.
Thank you. And my next question will also be for you. Your performance is very minimalistic, based on one simple movement, jump. Could you please share the story behind your movement research? How did you realize that such simple movement could become a strong political statement?
There was no like story behind it, to be honest. As I told, you know, like in my artistic way, I realized performances which, you know, I did for half a year, for 4 months, or I was really practicing and searching for a certain movement which will, you know, give the idea that I have in my head or in my body. And here it was like second, like it was really 2 hours on my studio. I'm sorry, I say it, maybe I shouldn't, I'm sorry. Maybe the organizer would not invite me if they knew. But it was really like one day at the studio, and I thought, okay, so what I can do, how can I dance, you know, about it? How can I relate to what is happening? How can I be like above it? So I thought that this repetitive movement, like, will get me somewhere. I had no idea where. Actually, I was pretty sure that when I start to jump, everybody will join me, like at once. Yeah, like I thought so. But I did this performance 2 times. So, this is the 3rd time, and nobody ever joined me. So, like, you know. It is. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't really care. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. You know, you don't have to join me, of course. But no. But I felt that you can have so many interpretations of it. It is so open, and I really can't say anything more about it. That this is just my statement of being with people who are fighting. So that's all.
Thank you. And I must say that me and Paul, for example, was nearby me, and some of my friends, and we were like, we really wanted to jump with you, but something stopped us. I don't know how to explain this, and I think that some people in the audience experience the same feeling. And it's a question maybe we should ask ourselves why we actually didn't respond to your piece. Olga, I want to ask you a question. Because now, like, Swan Lake actually is a huge cultural brand for Russia, and it's something that builds its reputation in a positive way. So touching this piece could be really controversial. Didn't you afraid to be misunderstood, maybe?
Well, it is the piece which is kind of associated with the big Russian culture, but at the same time, this is the only piece which is really associated with the fall of everything. And in a way, it's like a requiem of the system. And I always found it intriguing, kind of. But definitely, like what happened, I already said it, that especially when war happened, I felt that it's not that I need to excuse myself or to explain what I'm doing or something like that, but then suddenly I felt the huge importance to share the context. And as I said already before, when I did my last open studio which was in February, but like February 9, something like that, I still didn't have a text. So it was the whole physical part without the text. And then I had an after talk at the end, and I was more explaining actually the movements, like that basically my main idea from the beginning was recycling. And then actually the idea from the very, very beginning was actually to take this huge historical, cultural monument and to take completely off all the story, drama, characters, and to leave just the movement as a formal element. And then somehow for me, it was not anymore this huge, untouchable piece of art, which represent plus the whatever huge Russian culture. For me, what was important is really postmodernist way of just saying, okay, so now I just have a movement, I have a dance phrase which I learned, and I'm gonna dance it fast, and I'm gonna dance it slow, and I'm gonna dance it on music, without music. It was really formal tools used on this movement which is full of story and symbolic movement. So the idea was kind of opposite, just to take everything off and to dance it as it is. But as I said already, when war started, it's not that I wanted to give an excuse, because in any case in France nobody really cares. I think. And I don't even know, actually in France nobody even knows that Swan Lake really represents, I think it's funny enough, but the further we go from Russia and from Ukraine to the West, the less we feel all these things, the less we are in touch with them. And when I realized that in France nobody has an idea, like even journalists, even like people who normally are supposed to know a lot of things, they have no clue, for example, of this context of Swan Lake associated with the deaths of all the general secretaries. Really, like they have not even heard about it once. I actually didn't know if in Poland this something which you share with us or you don't know, and apparently you also don't know, but still I have to say that I feel that here like you relate to it differently, because in France they have other stuff, they have Molière. I don't even think that actually for them it does represent something that huge. I think it's for us mostly. But in any case, I add this text because it became very important for me somehow to also say, I'm not doing it to just do this beautiful Russian ballet, whatever. For me, the meaning is the magical thinking.
Thank you. And Paul, my next question is for you. Could you please reveal the story behind the name of the performance, Every Minute Motherland, and the story behind the whole creation and your role in this piece?
So you asked me a really hard question because this name was already decided before I got there. So I had to unpack what that meant, Every Minute Motherland. And I think what's important to understand about this project is that it was an extremely intense and long process. So the team of dancers were working with Maciej very long hours, 8 hours of full rehearsals a day, workshops in the morning. And also the piece was based on the Ukrainian dancers and Polish dancers' experience of the war. So Ukrainian dancers as refugees and Polish dancers as witnesses to the situation. So it was extremely personal piece, and the piece itself is about the war. So there was somehow no escape. So this was a kind of extreme process of endurance, and also I have to say the important word courage. It was kind of extraordinary bravery that for me was the most important thing about the entire process, that we're going to confront this, we're going to look at it, we're not going to look away. We're going to bear witness to what everyone has gone through, and we're going to make the piece about that. And then my role as dramaturg was, I was kind of parachuting in. So I would come, and then I would work remotely with Maciej, and we would talk about ideas, and I would plant seeds, and then I would come and work with the team in different places. But I think that's it in a nutshell. This is what this was, and it was extremely moving experience. And I think every Minute Motherland was the situation where we were. I can just describe like a day of rehearsal, so that the dancers would get up and look on their phones, at Twitter and Telegram and everything else about what's the morning news of the war. And then they go to do a very challenging warm-up class, basically, with Maciej. And if you guys know Maciej, he's a very demanding choreographer, so, which I felt like was probably a relief. And then 8 hours of rehearsal about the war and about the imagery of the war and about living through it. And then lunch break, and lunch break back on the phone to see, well, what's happened since then. And then at the end of the day, communication back to Ukraine on various internet portals, what's going on, how is everyone, so every Minute Motherland is that it was every minute. There was never an escape from that situation.
Thank you. And my next question is for you again, for your for your role as a dramaturg, because every Minute Motherland could be called a documentary piece because it is based on personal experiences of Ukrainian refugee dancers and, of course, of Polish dancers who also very closely experience war in Ukraine. So your role as a dramaturg, how did you feel actually kind of telling people what is worth to live in the piece, or, for example, what is better to get rid of, or how did you organize all this, your own creative process, to stay respectful for their experiences as well?
I think I have to say I'm a director, so I came to being a dance dramaturg somehow long and winding road. But my feeling is that my role in the piece was actually to create some distance. So because the team couldn't. It was not possible for them to create any distance from what they were going through because they were going through it. And so I would approach the piece and try to say, well, so this is a very personal situation, but this is also a universal situation. So war is a universal human condition. So there's a lot to talk about that, to think about that, not only in the personal sense, but in the big sense. And I think that was generally the way I was trying to work in this project, was to work on the level of ideas and to constantly try to push to be distant and right. So, and you know, I think that's where some material ended up being excluded because we felt like, well, it didn't help us understand something. It didn't help us tell us or told us something we already know. And this is also difficult because the context is that the audience knows too. The audience is going through it. The audience is also watching the war nonstop. So how do you create distance? So we looked at other artistic responses to war in the past. We looked at other ways of doing dance in response to war. And I think that this was my role in the piece, and I hope that it succeeded. That's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you. I have my last question. I have my last question, and then we can go to audience, the questions from the audience. My last question is for all of you. Do you feel that the current situation somehow transformed your perception of the role of art and your self-perceptions as artists?
I mean, I just felt that what I'm doing, it's so useless. Like, probably it's not very optimistic, the answer, but especially the first months, it's true that the only thing we were all doing is like watching news and trying to help and doing other stuff. And I mean, already I'm lucky because I was in France with my 2 children. I didn't have to run away, but my family was still in Ukraine, so it was totally crazy. And actually my premiere was going on, and it was something I dreamt of, and then it felt like so not important. Like I didn't even care, you know, I had my premiere in Paris and I was like, whatever. You know, but in the same time, what is crazy is that this piece became a political piece. It became it also because I'm Ukrainian, because like it's happening, because it goes through my body. And now when I do it, people always come also to talk to me after, to talk about Ukraine, to talk about other stuff. People often are even crying in France, which is rare actually, to relate this way. And so at some point I said to myself that it's important still what I do. In any case, that's kind of the only thing I can do with my job, because I'm not a doctor, or like I cannot do something else with that. And also, I think I said it to Polina, what is really, really important for me today as Ukrainian based in France, but still Ukrainian artist, is for me was very, very important to make an art which I consider as somehow Ukrainian art. And it was very important for me that it's not only because now everybody look at Ukraine, or everybody are sad for us, or everybody pity, and that's why whatever, everybody want to invite Ukrainian artists because it's Ukrainian artists. In somehow whatever we do, people look at it now because it's Ukrainian art. And somehow for me what was very important is to say, this is my product. I want it to be good. I put like a lot of energy in it. There is a lot of French budget in this project, and there is 0 Ukrainian. I mean, it was a piece produced in France, but for me it's very important, it's my statement to say, okay, I made this piece, and it's a Ukrainian piece, and I want it to exist, and I want it to travel and to be everywhere, and I want to show that Ukraine exists, and the culture exists, and that we can do things, because actually that's a huge polemic nowadays, that Ukrainian culture is basically a Russian culture. It's the same thing, you know. It's basically a bit the pilier, like the most important discussion in art today. Like we want to prove that Ukrainian culture is strong. It exists. It doesn't need something else. And everybody look at us, and we have things actually to propose, to show, to express. Yeah, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you. Paul, do you remember the question? Yeah, did war somehow changed your self-perception as artist and the role of art and the impact you could do actually?
Well, all I can say is that the war was extremely upsetting to me, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to fight, but that's not realistic. I'm too old, and I have 2 kids, but I wanted to fight, and I do believe that art can be a weapon, and if it's all you've got, it's an important weapon. And I think that it was also very important for the dancers in the piece. This was their way to fight back. This was their way to because the face of this war is a war, has a genocidal quality to it, that Russia is trying to exterminate Ukrainian culture. So if that is his aim, his war aim, then I can resist that by promoting Ukrainian culture, by supporting Ukrainian culture, and that's the way I wanted to fight. And so I never in the past articulated my work in this way. I've always played with politics. I've always been, I would say, against the power in my work. But this is the first time where I felt my work was in direct opposition to a current violent situation. And yeah.
Yeah, okay, very fast. I wanted to refer what Olga said, that I also felt useless as an artist. Yeah, but after I did the performance, I felt that this is what I could do as an artist. And actually, now I'm very much referred to my personal life. So I decided to really focus now on personal life, and I thought that maybe it's the best thing to do now, like really concentrate on myself.
Thank you. Is it? I wanted. We still have some time for questions from. Okay, we have time for one question from the audience. Who will be the most courageous and fast? Okay, 1, 2. No questions. Okay. Sorry.
Mam tylko takie krótkie pytanie, jeśli można po polsku zadać. Czy nasi goście z zagranicy mogą nam powiedzieć, jaka jest wiedza na temat tego, w jaki sposób Polska pomaga Ukraińcom? Czy oni wiedzą o tym, że to jest pomoc oddolna, robiona przez aktywistów i po prostu Polaków, a nie rządowa?
Based on the activity of people and less governments.
Yes, if you allow, for example, me as a Ukrainian in Poland, a Ukrainian refugee in Poland. The question for the audience was, do Ukrainian people and other people aware that the help for Ukraine comes mostly from Polish people, not the government? And let me answer this question as I'm Ukrainian refugee in Poland. I could say definitely yes, and I experience this help every day of my life, since the very moment when I crossed the border, from the first cup of tea which I was offered by Polish volunteers, till the people who hosted me and keep hosting me actually in Poland, and with colleagues I find here and who invited me here actually, and with all beautiful people that became my friends. And I never was refused with any help, with any request I had there, and I really felt safe and recognized and treated with dignity with everyone whom I met. So huge thank you for Polish people for this.